Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Sunday morning. Joe live from Joe Rayo up in the Valley Hudson, and me, Joe Chaffee, in the mountains of North Georgia. And I am still recovering, Joe. I left Friday night at 7 p.m. It took me, the Cross Bronx Expressway has now regained its title as the worst highway on earth. I had given it temporarily to Route 78 in Pennsylvania because of my drive here through all of the construction. But it took me the better part of an hour and a half to go 5 miles from the Throgs Neck Bridge to the George Washington Bridge. So I drove all night. I know Bill Rogers, I don't know if he's on the chat board today. He gets very worried that I drive straight through all, from Georgia to New York and from New York to Georgia, but I drove the entire night, and I got here at noon yesterday. Needless to say, I was in an absolute zombie state yesterday afternoon and evening, but I got a good night's sleep, and I'm feeling good today. And by the way, I wrote down the low temperatures here, okay? So Friday morning's low here was 65, okay? I'm sorry, the 9th. The low on the 9th was 65. The low on the 10th was 47. The low on the 11th yesterday was 49. And the low this morning was 54, which is why I'm in it's 11 o'clock in the morning. It's 65 here outside, and I'm wearing a sweatshirt and enjoying it.
And you still have yet to hit 90.
Yeah, I have to go back to see what happened during the 2 weeks I was away, but it has not hit 90 degrees during the time that I was here during the summer, which was every day except for the last 2 weeks. 2+ weeks. So I was up in New York for 17 days. So I am now back, and I got my electric bill. My electric bill was $70. Yeah, I agree.
For those days. My electric bill is probably about, I saw it the other day. It came in. It was more than 3 times your amount.
Yeah.
Of course, August, we spent practically the whole month up here with the air conditioner on. And it looks like, Joe, from what I've been able to see, it looks like the air conditioners are going to be coming back on again in a very short time during this week.
For you, maybe. I don't know about me.
Yeah, for you. Well. Incidentally, I got an email this morning from our mutual good friend, Bill Corbell, who was with us, I think, the day before, a couple of days before our big snowstorm up here last February. And we garnered, I think, close to 1,000 people when he was on. Anyway, Bill says that he wanted to know how things are going with us. And he says, if you ever want to guest for Joe and Joe, let me know.
Oh, okay.
I'd be happy to join.
Well, Joe, I don't know. I mean, do we wait? Really, I mean, do we waive?
We've got so many stars waiting.
I know, the line is just so long. We'll have to just see if we can squeeze him in, perhaps, 2024, maybe 24, 25. Yeah. I don't know. No, you and I have known Bill for such a long time that I think we'll have him on, and we can waive the appearance fee, the cheese, the cheese platter fee, the makeup fee, all of that. We'll just, that's what we charge him, not the other way around.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, let him know whenever he's ready. Okay. And
sure thing.
Yes, the Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631-756-1125 is the phone number. The website, omnitruevalue.com. And for those of you in the snow removal business, Salt is going to be expensive, especially for a lot of places where they actually import the salt, whereas Omni uses mine salt, which is domestic, so they will be able to provide the lowest prices around. So before you make a purchase, give them a call at 631-756-1125. And also, wholesale holiday lighting by Giannini, because now is the busy time, folks. If you're thinking about getting your home decorated for the holidays, or you want to do this as a business, or maybe you are doing this as a business and you need stuff, there are bottlenecks all over the place. You might want to get in touch with these folks here. They're at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst, New York. 631-957-5106 is the phone number. The website is liholidaylighting.com. So before you know it, this is the sprint, Joe. This is between Labor Day and Christmas. I used to refer to it as basically kind of a black hole, because it just seems like that time, the 4 months, goes so much faster than any other 4-month stretch during the year. I don't know if it's because we have it's a much busier time of year. There's a lot that goes on that's crammed into a small amount of time, so it just seems like the time goes faster. But that stretch between Halloween and Christmas, I've always referred to that as one long day, because it's
and
just
already,
one
Joe,
long day.
up here already we have leaves that are falling behind me. And are you looking for paper, dear?
Yes, I am.
Why don't you just take the entire ream? Hang on for a second, Joe. We're having
The following program is brought to you in living color.
And this broadcast is not brought to you by
Blizzard.
Well, you saw that. All right, take the whole thing. You were saying, Joe?
Yes, I was. I just noticed.
I think the leaves have already started falling here.
I just noticed
That's
something.
what I wanted to see.
I just noticed something.
What?
Pull your microphone just a shade further away from just a shade.
Like that? Just like that. How's that?
All right, let's see.
1, 2. Yes.
Let's see if that does anything with regards to that. Go ahead.
WB Mason, Blizzard, white, 98 brightness, used in the Rayo household for all sorts of stuff. Probably she's gathering. I'll do what she did. She gathered the paper because this weekend is the Oktoberfest here in Putnam Valley, and all of you were invited. We had a tremendous number of people yesterday, Joe. No kidding aside, lots and lots of people. Beautiful weather.
I'm cringing because of the audio.
The great fair music.
I'm getting got a lot of interference just now, so maybe my theory was wrong.
You know what I'm going to do? You know what I'm going to do, Joe?
What?
I'm going to do your thing. I'm going to take out the Bluetooth.
Okay.
Let's see if it happens with the blue. Let's see if it happens with the. So I'm taking that out, and I'm taking this off. And
okay, I'm not hearing it now, so that's good. So
all right,
it almost sounds, I was thinking like maybe there's a battery in there that needs to be changed or something like that, but that's just we'll play with that later. Okay, so we have very busy tropics. It seems as if everything is spinning all across the tropics, and Bill, I got a message from Bill Goodman this morning on this very subject matter, and he makes the point, and I really agree with him. There's so much going on in terms of things that are spinning up at the tropics that the weather models are going to have a real difficult time handling all of this stuff. So I would be very cautious about making forecasts based solely and specifically on whether one model has a storm versus not having a storm. I was looking, Joe, at the upper air profiles of a couple of these systems, and you go from conditions being unfavorable to favorable depending on whether a trough or a ridge is just slightly off by a handful of miles. They're all, when you have so much of this stuff running around so close together, there could be very subtle changes that could impact forecasts down the road. So I think we we've got a lot of uncertainty ahead of us for this coming week. From that respect,
we were looking at that system coming off of Africa. We've got and one, I will not mention who it was, but one local weathercaster, radio weathercaster here in the Hudson Valley yesterday morning was talking about how the GFS, and this I assume was the 6Z run of the GFS,
right,
that had come out a few hours earlier, and he was saying that now on the GFS that we look at, they're showing a hurricane coming up the eastern seaboard.
No, they weren't.
And hitting us.
No, that's wrong. That's wrong. If he said that, he's wrong.
He said that.
He's wrong.
All right.
Okay.
I did not have a chance because I had to get into my later horizon yesterday.
No, I mean it showed every bit of it showed every bit of a tropical storm, and look, I'll go back and look. But maybe I spoke too soon. But let me go back and look. This was when was this? Yesterday morning?
Yes, yesterday morning. So I'm making an assumption it was the 6Z.
Okay, the 6Z. Okay, hold on. Look, if I'm wrong about this, I will certainly take it back. But I will explain what I'm getting at here. All right, so here it is. So this is the 6Z. Nope, I knew I wasn't wrong. That's not a hurricane. Okay, first of all, hurricanes don't have pressures above 1,000 millibars. But just in case, I'm going to go back to the 6Z. That was the 6Z Saturday run that I had up. Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to double check. If I'm going to accuse somebody, I mean, it had a coast hugging. I would say that this was probably a mid-range tropical storm, a coast-hugging low that runs all the way up, and would certainly have been, if that winds up verifying, it's going to be another big rain for someone. But I would certainly not call it. Let's look at the 0Z. Let's just make sure it wasn't the 0Z Saturday.
Well, what the point I was trying to make is, whether it was a tropical storm, a tropical cyclone, a hurricane, or depression, the bottom line of it is that today's 6Z run shows nothing of the sort. In fact, if anything, today's 6Z run for the end of the week into the start of next weekend shows a massive 1042 high pressure zone over eastern Canada, over Quebec, pushing and stretching on all the way down at least to the Cape Hatteras, North Carolina area. And what happened to the system that was being ballyhooed yesterday on radio? It's gone. And,
well, look, I go back to what I'm sorry. No, there's still a low there that comes up, but it takes a hook to the. Well, two things happen. A, it takes a hook to the right. B, there's no deep upper trough that's driving this to move when it gets over the cooler waters north of 35 and 36 degrees north. There's no upper trough that's moving it along at 20, 25, or 30 miles an hour. It's basically crawling over 75-degree water, Joe. And you've seen what happens in the Pacific when you get hurricanes that move into that cooler water. They just gradually decay. So that's what the 6Z run of the model does. But I go back to what I said at the beginning. These systems are going to be spinning up, and I just would not put too much stock in what's going on. One of the ones that is from the standpoint of the models, but one of the systems that is spinning up is the one in the Southwest Gulf, where we have an Air Force reconnaissance aircraft there right now, and they found on the east side winds of 40 to 45 knots. Now, I've also seen northwest winds, mostly on the light side. The gales that they picked up on were about 70 or 80 miles to the east of where there might be a center. But the plane is going around trying to close something off. So let's see. I want to see what they find. And there's a 20-knot wind in a buoy or ship or something that's out at 22 north and about 91 west. So the plane is southwest of there. So we'll see what it comes with. I think what it's going to find, Joe, is if you're judging from the satellite, you're definitely seeing this thing organizing. The showers and thunderstorms are increasing. Looks like the convection's trying to ball up in the southwest Gulf. I think it's going to find a broad center. I don't know if it's going to find a tightly, wrapped up one yet, but
Right.
does look like this thing is developing.
Right. But the point I wanted to make just a few minutes ago, Joe, is the fact that, never ever, I think if you're gonna try to do a long range, do it with the 0 or 12Z primary runs. Don't use the intermediate runs for more than, let's say, 2 or 3 days out. That's number one. Isaac Asimov, the great science and science fiction writer, wrote a story called The Last Question. Won't get into it, but the primary axiom in that story was when scientists in the story kept asking the computers, which became more and more advanced with time, the question about can entropy be reversed, and the computer came back with there is as of yet insufficient data for a meaningful answer. And what I'm saying here is, I think the TV people and I think the National Weather Service should no longer issue forecasts 7 days or beyond. I mean, I've seen some TV stations with the 7-day, some with the 10-day outlook, for goodness sake. You're not doing your viewers any favors by trying to tell them what it's going to be like 10 days out. We should all go back to the 5-day forecast, because anything beyond 5 days, as the quote from Isaac Asimov, there is as of yet insufficient data for a meaningful answer. Again, if I'm going to tell you 7 days from now there could be a tropical cyclone near the New York, Long Island area, or in the wintertime, if I'm going to tell you 7 days from now there's going to be the potential of a 6 to 12-inch snowstorm, that is not a meaningful answer, because we know it's going to change. We know things are not going to live up in 9 out of 10 cases to what you're saying for 7 days from now. Things are going to change. The models after 4 or 5 days like to waffle. And I'm getting sick and tired of seeing some forecasters who are telling us, seemingly with a tone of surety, that a week from now we're going to get a hurricane, or a week from now we're going to get a major snowstorm or anything. It just doesn't work. And I think we should really, you should ask Bill Goodman next time he's on or whatever like that. How does he feel? Would he like to take the 7-day outlook and bring it back to a 5-day outlook?
Look, I'm going to respond to you. I just want to point out we do have Tropical Storm Nicholas that was just formed in the Southwest Gulf, and so that obviously the answer to the question was yes, they did close off a center. But right. Since you bring up the point now, before we go back to that, what you're suggesting is never going to happen. Okay, it's just
right.
not. It would take.
No, we're not.
Right, it's not going to happen. It would take everybody agreeing not to do it, and that's never going to occur. What's missing in any of those types of forecasts always, and we discussed this, at nauseum last week, is context. No context. Okay, and I'm not talking about context that says there's the obvious context, which is the model is showing a hurricane, but it's in the long range. So I'm not talking about that kind of context. I'm talking about context in relation to making that relevant as far as what is going on in the atmosphere. What's driving that? Why is it doing it? Why is it valid? Is it not valid? I watched on TV this morning one of the locals here from Atlanta, okay, giving their weathercast on a repeat on a Sunday morning. And do you know what I learned, Joe? I learned that if I was going to churches are big down here. There's churches everywhere. So I learned in that was that if I was going to the 6 a.m. church service, I would have needed a sweater. If I'm going to the 9 a.m. church services, I could have the sweater needed to get to the church, but then I would not need it after the church was over. And then if I was going to the noon services, I probably wouldn't need a sweatshirt or a sweater whatsoever. So that's the context that I get when I watch weathercasts, and I paid specific attention to in terms of what was being delivered in terms of information. Okay, there was no meteorology in it whatsoever. None. Okay. It's what am I wearing? You know, what are you going to wear? And this is the type of thing that management always wanted us to do. Okay. And
Right.
I hated it.
Okay.
It's not my job to tell
The
somebody
assumption,
that they need to
the
wear a
assumption,
coat. It's not my
the
job to
assumption.
tell
Yeah, you're
people that
right.
they
You're
need to wear
absolutely right.
boots.
You're absolutely right. I hated it, especially in the wintertime when I used to the producer would say, you know, tell them what they have to wear, or they even have it. See, this is the thing is these what to wear things are sponsored. They're getting money for telling you what to wear, as if the general public was too stupid. If I'm telling them, hey, right now it's
Yeah,
35
I don't
degrees.
need to
Tomorrow,
exactly.
when you get up tomorrow morning, be sure to bundle the kids up because it's going to be around 10 with a wind chill of sub-zero. As if the average viewer was too stupid to put two and two together and figure that out. But now it's gotten to the point on television where if we tell them what to wear, and we can get paid for telling them what to wear, let's do it. And it took out to me. I once told the producer, I said, you know what you're doing? You're taking 25 seconds out of a perfectly good weathercast when I can educate and tell people something other than what to wear, boys and girls. You know, I hated it. Just
Right.
like you, I
So
hated it.
we can guarantee you that here on this program, we will not have Omni True Value hardware or wholesale holiday lighting by Giannini or anyone else that wants to have their products sponsored, by the way. There's a shameless self promotion. We will not be doing, we're not doing, you know, school, but you know what, Joe, you know what I hated? The school bus forecast. I hated the school
Yes.
bus forecast. Now,
Yeah.
if you had a sponsored, say, marine forecast or a fishing forecast, that's different because you know those folks are looking for specific weather information, and you could, you know, you could deliver that. I mean, really, did I need to tell you how to dress your miserable little turnip as you're sending him out to school? Is you know or that insect you're raising. I don't no, I'm not. And by the way, I raised 3 miserable little turnips myself. So I'm okay. So I get it. But yeah, no, I hated it. Okay, so enough of that. Let's go to Tropical Storm Nicholas in the Gulf of Mexico. You know, mentioning the fact that everything seems to be spinning up in the tropics. Well, they're spinning up even as we speak. So the position on this, as I saw the folks on the chat board, I saw somebody put up the latitude and longitude there. 20 and a half north, 94.8 west, maximum winds of 40 miles an hour. As you said, the flight level winds were running at 40 up to 45, 40 to 45 knots. So 40 miles per hour makes sense. Moving northwest at 13. Tropical storm warnings are up for a small portion of the northeast coast of Mexico, and then extend northward from there from Brownsville. You know, I haven't read the advisory yet, so I'm just guessing from the map that Corpus Christi is included. It probably runs up maybe to Freeport, and a tropical storm watch from there on up through Galveston and points east. So why don't we just take it right off the advisory? I was just seeing how good I am at eyeballing this stuff. So tropical storm. Oh, I was going to say Port Aransas. Tropical storm warning from the mouth of the Rio Grande to Port Aransas. The government of Mexico from okay, Bada el Mez Mezquita, northward to the U.S.-Mexico border. A storm surge watch, blah, 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 from the Texas coast to the mouth of the Rio Grande to High Island. Tropical storm watch from Port Aransas to High Island, Texas. Okay, so I was going to say Port Aransas. You know, I wanted to
You
get
notice
that.
I'm keeping my mouth shut because I was horrible in Spanish, and one of the things I was really horrible in when I was in high school was something called auditory comprehension and speech. I could never ever pronounce some of these Spanish words, as you know. So I'm leaving it up to you to mention or to try to pronounce these Spanish or Latin American names. Uh,
Yes, no, my Italian helps me with that because it's the same. You know, the rules of pronunciation are the same for Italian words and Spanish words, and actually the languages are very similar. So oftentimes there are words in both that are the same in both languages. So it is easier for me to pronounce it. I just have
Right.
to figure it out sometimes. Let's see. Bill Rogers, I mentioned imported salt. Yes, I did early on, but I'm not sure if you have a question about that. And anyway, oh, I see. Because Scott NC says take it with a grain of salt more than 5 days out. So yeah, I mentioned imported salt. So yes, use imported salt if you're going to take. If you're going to take things with a grain of salt, always better to go imported rather than domestic. Okay. Anyhow, so there you have it with respect to Nicholas, and you can see the thunderstorms there have been increasing in the Southwest Gulf. Also note, by the way, go on the other side on the lower right, folks. You can see a rotation there. And that's a part of that's a cold upper low that is rotating back westward. And you also note, by the way, that's the spinning that you see right in here. That's the upper low. All right off the southeast coast of the United States is an old frontal boundary that's sitting there, and gradually the front that is there is disintegrating. But as this upper low goes west, is going to wind up going westward. Eventually, in a few days, you're going to wind up with a low that's going to develop in that old frontal boundary, and there's also probably a little bit of a tropical wave that is moving northwestward too. So it's kind of a complex situation here, setting up off the southeast coast of the United States. But low pressure is forecast to form, and then you're left with, Joe, a very weak flow in the eastern part of the United States in the upper atmosphere. The westerlies are going to be retreating all the way up into Canada. So we're going to be in a situation much like we were with Henri, where you've got something responding to just a weak upper low, and whether it becomes tropical or not may not make a difference, because ultimately it'll be if it's going to be just that, it'll just be about rain. So we'll have to see whether that complicates things for next weekend as far as rain is concerned.
Well, like I said about 5 minutes ago, at least the 6Z GFS for next week is showing a humongous zone of high pressure that's going to be ridging down from eastern Canada into the northeast, at least for the start of next weekend. So whether or not that eventually lifts out. The other thing is that the 6 to 10 day NOAA's 6 to 10 day climate prediction center is indicating that there's going to be an 80% probability of above normal temperatures for over the next 6 to 10 days in our part of the country, and that seems to imply, Joe, that we'll be looking at temperatures at least extended out to the 6 to 10 day time frame. We could be looking at temperatures well up in the 80s, and dare I say, even though we're into now the middle of September, dare I say we might even be looking at temperatures in the 90s again for one more go around.
I don't doubt it. The Storm Prediction Center, by the way, we don't want to ignore the fact that we do have some severe weather risk here today in northern Pennsylvania and across much of southern New York, and going into the middle and upper Hudson, actually more toward the upper Hudson Valley and up into central New York. We have slight risk there, and marginal risk actually touches the northwest corner of New Jersey and along and north of Route 84 into southern interior southern New England and southeastern New England up to Massachusetts. Also, marginal risk in western Nebraska, Kansas, eastern Colorado, with slight risk also indicated on the easternmost part of the state. Otherwise, we have general thunderstorms along the Gulf Coast. And then for tomorrow, just checking out the severe weather risk from the Storm Prediction Center, we do have a marginal risk for New Jersey. The northern flank runs from New York City northwest to Buffalo. The southern flank runs from Erie, Pennsylvania to Cape May. So everybody in between those boundaries I just laid is in a marginal risk. The other marginal risk area kind of looks like a duck's head. Especially if
right
you look,
here.
I mean, if you stare at it, you don't have to stare at it with it that long and that long, Joe. The line of the state of Iowa is kind of making it look like a duck's head across. I mean, I know everybody naturally goes to a phallic symbol, but I decided that I was going to keep it clean, particularly because of the break that's over Michigan. Otherwise, it would be magical. But you could see the marginal risk there in South Dakota, much of Nebraska, northeast Colorado, southeast Wyoming, and then kind of nosing across southern Minnesota and into Wisconsin. So that is the period from Monday into Tuesday. So let's see what clever artistic risk areas we have for Tuesday into Wednesday. And on the day 3, we have a marginal risk from Kansas northeast to the lakes to western New York and northwestern PA, and general thunderstorms over a rather large area, pretty much everywhere east of the plains is under a risk. No risk, Joe, for the Gulf Coast, though. But that's early. Now that they made this a tropical storm, I'm wondering whether we might see marginal risks areas being added to the Texas Gulf Coast and maybe up into Louisiana. That could be that to me could be a big story here because of the fact that this thing is going to be trapped down there and just move very, very slowly. So it may be around for days, in which case these rainfall amounts, and they've got 10 to 15 inches on WPC does for coastal Texas and the southwest Louisiana. That could be conservative.
Right. And again, we just want to back up to day 1, Joe. I mean, the Storm Prediction Center doesn't have, I mean, like just a stone's throw away to the north, let's say up to just north of Poughkeepsie to Albany, and west through Binghamton to Buffalo, there's a 2% risk of tornadic activity being indicated by the Storm Prediction Center. I would assume that would be for later today or overnight tonight, as things begin to cook up near that frontal system that's draped just north of where we are here in the tri-state area.
Do you know what's? Oh, there, finally. I was having trouble loading that. There's your 2% risk. Northernmost Pennsylvania, southern New York, as you said. I was thinking back to last, when was it, Joe? When we had was it last week, that one day last week we had 5% tornado risk again?
Right. That was the day with Ida. The enhanced version.
Yes.
The enhanced reading.
Well, no, we had that 10%. Right, we had 10% risk. But there was one day last week with the severe. Wasn't there one day last week with severe weather risk?
I tell you, all these severe weather risks.
I know. They're all. My head now. I know. I'm my brain is still like Jello from the long drive back, so I'm trying to remember.
Right.
What day it was. But yeah, we are seeing a rather busy severe weather season here, if you want to call it that, because usually by the time you get into the first part of September, this sort of stuff is beginning to wind down, if not minimized to a certain area, but to certain areas. But we seem to be a lot busier than they normally would be. And by the way, WPC for the Northeast has a couple of inches of rain in a band. Now this is over the next 7 days, obviously, across northeastern Michigan, and then running east through upstate New York and in through central New England, and the amounts kind of go down a bit on either side. But if we are going to be dealing with something developing off the southeast coast of the United States, and I happen to think that at worst case scenario, you wind up with a low grade tropical storm that moves northward. I would be more concerned about what kind of rain it would produce rather than anything regarding wind. But looking at the way Joe WPC's map, which takes us into through next Sunday morning, it doesn't appear like they're not generating big rainfall amounts in the coastal plain. So they're kind of looking at this and thinking that maybe they're not bullish on development here. At least at the moment, WPC is not bullish.
Right. Yeah. If you want, I could show you the. I still, believe it or not, I still have access to it. The futurecast for today and for the next few days coming up. Just looking at it to see where exactly Storm Prediction Center or why they're forecasting severe weather so close to our area. And I wanted to see if it lined up or jived with the
Yeah,
RPM.
you could
In fact, I see
go
that.
ahead. You got
Okay,
sharing. I'll
all right.
switch cameras.
Okay,
Once,
so
hang on.
where
There
are
you go.
we? What am I doing? That's you, not me. That I all right, hang on for a second.
Well, at
Let me
least
just
you now
unshare.
learned a new skill. You can pull maps up and hear any map.
Right,
Do you see the
right.
best
But
discoveries? The best discoveries in science, Joe, and technology are always the ones that are discovered on accident, as I used
exactly. Unexpected,
on accident,
unexpected.
as my kids used to
Right.
say.
So let me boom. All right. So now I'm going to go back to this, share this. It is wonderful. Just like this is like watching share. There we go. So this is as of 8 o'clock this morning, and we don't have much to show you because there wasn't anything to show you across the Northeast. Now, if we put this in motion, now I was anticipating it somewhere up here, around here this afternoon and this evening, we see some severe activity. But as you can see, we sweep right on through the overnight hours with nothing. I mean, let me just back that up there. At least according to the RPM model, there really isn't any kind of severe risk. This is now what you're seeing on the screen now is 12:30 tonight, 12:30 a.m. And you can see everything kind of shears off and stays well north. It seems to be passing into the vicinity of Tim Veltman, passes through the Albany area. But a lot of this really doesn't even come close, at least if you want to believe this at face value. And then after tonight, there's not much to show you either. I mean, tomorrow there's a little bit of a scattering of activity, mostly over Pennsylvania and South Jersey, that may encroach upon our area for early on Tuesday morning. And Tuesday there's some activity, just widely scattered. Here's a front. It looks like it's trying to come through, and that's where the we've gone as far as we can go, 72 hours, and we have that band of broken activity. But at least, again, according to the Futurecast or the RPM model, Joe, there really doesn't appear to be much of a threat. So the folks over at the Storm Prediction Center, they may see something that at least the RPM doesn't. But I don't really, you want to take this to heart, doesn't really show much of anything in terms of thunderstorm or shower activity for let's say later today or for tonight. But
Right,
we'll
and we're
see.
talking, folks, lower Hudson Valley, eastern PA, southern New England, down to the northern Mid-Atlantic. So from Maryland, Virginia, northern Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, and points north. So that's that zone in between. We lie outside of it. And that's kind of how I approach my forecast, by the way. Last night, yesterday afternoon, was the same idea. And because even though I was traveling all over creation yesterday, driving down the East Coast, I made sure that I got weather posts up on the website and continue my unbroken streak of not missing a single
Yes,
day in 7 years as far
I
as
noticed that.
forecasting is concerned. So I'm very proud of that. What I'm not proud of is the fact that I suddenly lost the screen, went to black for some reason. So I'm trying to figure out.
No, I'm seeing right now. I'm seeing. What am
Well,
I
no, you're
looking
on
at
a
right
lag.
now?
You will see. Hang
Oh,
on. Hang on a second.
everything has gone to black.
Yes. See? I told you. I told you. Just give me a moment. I got to change. Nope, that's not it. Nope, that's not it. Okay. Hold on a second. Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Remember when that used to happen so frequently? Let's say a Channel 5, for example, they'd show the police and they play something like Burt Camford in the
Yeah,
background, and
I
and then you
know.
hear the music, and then you'd hear
Do you remember?
a staff announcer like Fred. You'd hear like Fred Scott, who to us was Uncle Fred, who used to show cartoons. Who said, "We're experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by."
Yeah, it just sort of the music sort of reminded me of Muzak. Remember Muzak?
Muzak, right,
I often,
right.
Joe, I used to stand around and actually worry about the fact that the man that thought of Muzak might think of something else.
We used
Serious.
to when I was a young boy, my grandparents, we used to go to a Howard Johnson's, which was right off of the Bruckner Expressway in Throgs Neck, and we'd go on Wednesday because Wednesday was fish fry.
Yeah, no, I
Right?
used to go there for ice cream. That for the longest time used to be the last surviving Howard Johnson's, or one of the last surviving ones.
We'd go in there for fish fry night, and we'd always hear the music. And my grandmother used to say, "Is that Muzak?"
Yes. Well, you should always worry that the man who thought of Muzak might think of something else. And also remember,
Yes.
if it's not your mother, it must be Howard Johnson's.
Yeah.
That was Rita Rudner used to have a great routine. The comedian Rita Rudner used to do a great routine about that, that slogan, and how you would call you would order dinner. You would call down, ask dinner to be brought up to your room, and the voices would say on the other side, "You're not including vegetables in that order. Maybe you should have a little more vegetables in your diet."
Right.
You know.
And the other thing about Howard Johnson's, it's the next best thing to your home cooking.
Yes,
No, excuse me. That was Swanson.
that was
I'm sorry.
Swanson.
That was Swanson.
All right, upper.
For those who ate TV dinners.
We're having a lot of fun today, folks. So let's run through the upper air because it's coming up on a 11:45, and I'm going to make my own pizza today. So not that I haven't done that before, but I ran into somebody this morning who gave me some ideas. So I will do that, and then I will report about what those ideas are in a later broadcast. Okay, so as far as the upper air is concerned, now you'll notice a couple of things that I think are important going forward and could impact weather here in the eastern part of the United States. And one is the fact that we're back to a rather strong Atlantic ridge. Actually, it's in two pieces. You've got one, there's an Azores piece and a Bermudas piece, and in between, you kind of have a little bit of troughing there, a little bit of a weakness, not much of one, but a little bit. Meanwhile, the troughing has actually dropped down into the western part of the United States, which means that the air in Canada, and this happens actually often this time of year, when you start to see the first troughs kind of drop down into the western United States, and that allows for ridging in the east. And we're definitely seeing it here in the long range. And with that Atlantic ridge strengthening, we're watching. That's one of the reasons why we're watching that area off the southeast coast, because there's a definite weakness between that and then another ridge, another high that's back down in Mexico. So right here, you've got this kind of weakness, a little bit of troughing. So if something does want to try to form off the southeast coast of the United States, it's going to wind up shooting up in between. But again, I just want to point out that that's just one level in terms of steering. The upper air conditions are very complex, and I don't really think this is a scenario that would wind up seeing anything much beyond a low grade or maybe a mid-level tropical storm to develop. And that's if we get those puzzle pieces to all fall in place. And as far as the one in the system in the Gulf of Mexico with Nicholas, a similar issue here, Joe. You've got this strong you've got basically ridging all over the place. There's no strong flow. There's a trough that's swinging through the northern plains that might pull it northward, but it doesn't go far enough south to pick it up. So we'll have to watch for the possibility that, again, that could linger around in the Western Gulf for a few days. And it's threading a very fine needle there in the Western Gulf. As the center remains over water, you could wind up seeing this thing strengthen. And by the way, I will bring up something that's really important from that respect, and that is the Gulf of Mexico water temperatures. Now, this is pretty interesting because we had Ida, Joe. Remember we had Ida, and we talked about the upwelling. And if you notice that the eastern, I'm a little surprised at this. I thought this would have recovered somewhat, but going into Ida, this was all 30 degrees C plus water. Now it's all less than 29. And the eastern Gulf of Mexico is very, very cool. But Ida did not impact the water temperatures in the Western Gulf, where we see this huge area of water temperatures above 30 C. Okay, and this is not shallow, by the way. This goes down a bit. So we're looking at a big area here where water temperatures are certainly supportive for something stronger than just a simple tropical storm. And track is going to be really important here. If it's straddling along or just offshore and the center stays over water, you could wind up with a few surprises in the coming days. So folks in that part of the country, in coastal Texas and even into southeastern Louisiana, you got to kind of pay attention to this, because it's kind of one of these sneaky systems. And the other thing, Joe, is when you look at the dynamics aloft, which I took a close look at and wrote about yesterday. See, in spite of my long driving thing, I was still able to do like not only a local weather post, but a tropical weather post, no less. But take a look at this with respect to the upper air across the Gulf of Mexico and in the Southwest Atlantic. Oh, nope, sorry, that's wrong graphic. This is what I wanted. And you got.
Let me point out that the powers that be high above are turning me into not a liar, but I mean, if you remember, I said June and July we had a fast flow and got outbreaks of cooler air every 2 or 3 days. We didn't see any of that in August, but now finally we're back to that old pattern in September. And no sooner were the words out of my mouth, but all of a sudden everything coming out of Canada suddenly stopped. The ridge starts to build, and now it looks like we're going to be in a protracted spell again of unseasonable warmth and unseasonable spells of humidity. So I'm going to keep my mouth shut next time. But that may set the stage again, as you pointed out, Joe, for helping out Nicholas down in the Gulf states and whatever tropical activity may want to bubble up or boil up over the next week or two.
Right. Yeah, and you know what? Don't be surprised if something then switches it on a dime and suddenly the troughs come back into the eastern part of the United States.
Yes.
There seems to be, a little bit of volatility in how models are handling things. So I wouldn't be shocked. Looking at the upper air here in the Gulf of Mexico, you do have troughing back to the west in West Texas and then down into Mexico. So we do have what appears to be a fairly strong outflow pattern. There's an upper high that's in the Southwest Gulf that this thing is kind of sitting under. Now, over time, that southwest flow in Texas kind of retreats back a little bit further to the west. So all through this, Joe, I'm looking at an upper, the outflow pattern is being rather favorable for some strengthening. The proximity to land is going to be key here as to whether this thing winds up strengthening to anything beyond the tropical storm. Because you notice on the GFS from overnight, at least, that the center is a handful of miles off the coast. And if it's not moving very quickly, you're going to have some upwelling issues that are going to eventually get involved there too, which is going to hamper it. So a lot to look at there. Meanwhile, in the Southwest Atlantic, we start, interestingly enough, with conditions that are actually relatively unfavorable for tropical cyclone formation, because you've got this deep upper air trough way up in the upper atmosphere. But what happens here is that as the system in the Gulf of Mexico develops, that ridge pulls back a bit to the west. And meanwhile, the upper trough in the east kind of lifts up and out, and you've got this sort of zone in between that forms around midweek where conditions actually become a bit more favorable for development. And that's where you get this low that spins up from the old frontal boundary.
Yes, indeed. By the way, have you noticed that that awful sound has not returned? So
yes.
It may very well be something with the headsets.
Yeah, it might be a weak battery. I don't know. I don't have a Bluetooth monitor. I actually have a Bluetooth headset, but I haven't. The one I'm using now hasn't broken yet. So when that breaks, I'll switch. Right. We do have the new GFS to look at. So why don't we take a look and see how it's handling all of this? So we'll give that a quick. The maps should switch off. That was last night's on that frame. You may just see very quickly before it makes the switch, and it's only out to 54 hours. You know what? The other day, Joe. By the way, I saw somebody had a shot down, a clock down, a clock countdown for how many days till Halloween, how many days till the last day of summer, how many days to Halloween, how many days to Thanksgiving, how many days to Christmas. And one thing they also had in there was how many days until we go to standard time again, so that we can get these darn models, before
Right.
Before showtime. Okay, so looking at the new GFS, and again, we take this with a grain of salt because it's only one model run. Nicholas is just barely off the coast there, east of Brownsville, east of Corpus Christi. It actually drops the pressures down almost to 990, Joe. So it kind of implies the GFS is trying to imply that there is risk of this becoming a hurricane maybe before it makes landfall, and it actually brings it up to Addison Green territory over Galveston and Houston come Tuesday. So maybe we ought to get Addison. Maybe I'll reach out to Addison and ask him because he's always looking to get on this show. I mean, he's always begging to come on. At least through Tuesday, as far as the system in the Atlantic goes, which I only have out to 54 hours, you still just see, disorganized showers out east of the Bahamas. And there are lower pressures in the eastern Bahamas because that's the area that's under that isobar. But if we look at the prior run, and we'll give the maps time to load.
The 6Z
now back to the 6Z.
Right.
Just to give you an idea of what this one did. Okay, so it's not really until later Wednesday that you start to see a weak surface low develop there. And now you got that 10-12 low that Thursday morning is well southeast of Hatteras, but you see how there's kind of a broad area of showers, and then that low just kind of spins up. Looking at this, Joe, I would say, unlike the last few days where it had a tightly wound developing low with pressures down in the high 990s, this one is much more, a broad low. Maybe you'd get a tropical depression out of it, at least according to what the 6Z did. It just has more of a tropical depression, and it kind of, it just drifts up into that no man's land north of 35 degrees and south of 40 and west of 70, where the water temperatures are not really all that warm. And then it just, like, as you said, the next high builds down and just pretty well pushes that out. And, by the way, one other thing, raising a point with respect to you, in spite of the ridge position, this is the time of year where you do get sometimes these big surface highs to build up to the north. So yeah, the upper air might say above normal temperatures, but the wind direction is going to be northeast. That will bring those temperatures down a bit. It won't go, below normal, but it might be more closer to normal if you wind up with a strong onshore flow. That's all I'll just add to that.
We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's do a little Briller Jeopardy here. Feeling a little bit disorganized personally because that drive back just does a number. By the way, I wanted to mention this because we're quick to criticize, but we are also quick to acknowledge when the criticism is taken seriously and something comes of it. So I just wanted to say. So Joe, remember we talked about last week the New York Post with the headline article about Larry.
Right.
Okay. So apparently, now, far be it from me to believe that it was our conversation on air that caused them to do this, but because I didn't even know they did this until I got someone that had a regular watcher of the show emailed me the same copy, the same link post, okay, that I had, but they changed it. So the first, because he was asking me, I don't understand why you're complaining about the post because this seems perfectly legit. After so at some point later that day, they changed that headline to not make it seem as if what was going on in the Northeast with flash floods and tornado risk. That was the one day this week we had that with whatever was going on that had nothing to do with Larry. Okay, so I don't know that I would like to think that it was our what we said that caused them to do the right thing, but thanks to big kudos, big kudos, big applause, and lots of praise to the New York Post for going in there and changing that and making it more acceptable to us purists here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show.
I think we didn't have something to do with it, Joe. Everybody watches the Joe and Joe Show. Everybody.
Which is the reason why. Fine. And you get stopped on the street. Yes, I was going to say.
Yeah. And then the funny thing when they recognize me and they remember Joe and Joe, they look at me and says, "Now, which one are you? Are you Joe or are you Joe?"
Well, you right. We all, whenever somebody asks me, I always say Joe gets top billing. Okay. So, Les Jeopardy Brillar today, by the way, Mr. Rayo, actually is courtesy of one of our Joe and Joe Weather Show moderators, Brandon Doherty, who sends these questions, and we're going to instead of talk about New York City, we're giving it a Philadelphia spin to it. Okay. Where a Philadelphia spin to this. The chairman
I'll take it through a shortcut. I'll take it through a shortcut.
Philadelphia, yes, exactly. The chairman also hitting super chat. Thank you, Mr. Scott, as the weather telling the weather he's got his hospital job, so he's back to doing COVID runs. So just bear in mind, Mr. Scott, you need to stay safe. Okay. And Steve Lapointe is on. He hasn't been on in a while, so we hope you're doing okay, Stevie. Nice to see you on board. I always call people that are named Stevie, and I know that might annoy them, just like I used to get annoyed people calling me Joey. And Bob Breck, by the way, who was our guest before Ida, is one of the only people, other than my grandmothers, who could call me Joey. So there. Anyhow, are you ready?
I will try.
Do you have your cheesesteak hat on?
Yeah. I've only been to Philadelphia once, so
it's nice. I've been there a few times. A lot of history in the city. I really enjoyed it.
Yes.
The Liberty Bell and all the rest of it. Okay, so here we go. Question 1. What was the coldest, and this is within 3, Joe, the coldest temperature ever recorded in Philadelphia?
I will say -17.
-7. Okay. And by the way, yeah.
How is that possible? How is it possible that New York City got -15? I'm saying, all right, then Philadelphia certainly would be. I know they're a little further south, but they're not as there's not as many people. There's not as much of a heat island. So how is that possible? And that's like 8-degree difference between New York City and Philadelphia. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, here's another thing, and I remember this particular morning because I believe that New York City did not go. I got to go back and double check. I don't think New York City got below 0 on this particular day because of the wind direction, but the record is -7 set on -7 January of 1984. Okay, wow. So now you would think if they got to -7 that New York City should have gotten down to maybe -9 or -10 or even -6 or 5. But I don't think they got below 0. So something was going
on. Talking about 1980. You're talking about 84, and New York again is so much more built up by 84 as opposed to Philadelphia.
Oh, I don't know. I get it.
I'd like to know what Philadelphia was on February 9th, 1934, when we got down to -15. I'd like to know what Philadelphia was on that day.
I'll have to do a little digging.
Yes.
All right. Now, what was the hottest temperature ever recorded in Philadelphia? Within 3.
Well, I'll say I know I can't can't get a I know I can get this right with a 3-degree spread on either side. I'll say 100. I'll say 105.
Well, 106 back in 1918.
Okay.
All right, so before we get to question 3, I just want to acknowledge Michael McGuire hitting super chat. Thank you, Michael. Most appreciated. A decent range for next weekend. Well, that's going to depend, I think, on whether something develops off the southeast coast or not. Because if it doesn't develop, it's hard to see how we would get anything as far as, quote unquote, decent rains. Although I'm kind of wondering, with all the rain that's happened in the last 3 weeks with Henri and Ida, I really don't think we need to see any kind of substantial rainfall. But anyway, all right. So next question: Philadelphia has received how many 20-inch snowfalls since records have been kept? Within 2.
How many 20-inch snowfall? And I know I was on duty for one of those in 1983. In fact, I still have the special weather statement from the Philadelphia office, and the headline was, "This is one you're going to tell your grandkids about." I think that's when they had like 25 inches at Philly. I will. We had so many in New York. So many of these giant storms over the last 20 years or so. I don't know. I'll take a wild guess. 5.
Yeah, it's a low number. It's 3. It's a low number for Philadelphia, and I can think of a number of instances where snowfalls are substantial in New York City, Long Island in particular. The difference between the number of 20-inch snowstorms in New York City and the number of 20-inch snowstorms on Long Island is a large number because of the coastal exposure. A lot of times Long Island would get clobbered and get double the snowfall that New York City would get. So, but yeah, it's a low number. It's only 3. So New York City's kind of right on the edge of where, let's call it the 20-inch snowstorm alley. And now here's an interesting one, because Joe, this question, because as you know, we didn't have storms like this back in the, in the 1800s. Okay, that it fits into that category. So, what was the highest tornado rating on the Fujita scale that Philadelphia has ever seen?
Well, we had the Westchester hurricane, the Westchester tornado, I think of 2007 was an F2, EF2. I'll say EF2 for Philadelphia.
Well, now we remember we had an EF3 in South Jersey back, with Ida. So, and we've had a few of those this year. We've had big tour.
But you're saying for
Philadelphia specifically, yes.
Is it possible? Is it possible in Philadelphia? I understand the EF3 in South Jersey, but South Jersey is more, I won't say rural, but I mean it's more wide open.
Okay.
We're talking about a major urban area or whatever. So what I'm questioning is it possible for a major urban area like a Philadelphia or like New York to have anything higher than an EF2? Maybe an EF3.
We didn't have F3s back in the day. Actually, it's an F3 in 1885. Okay, wow. 1885, Joe. 6 people were killed in that tornado.
Well, then Philadelphia. We're going back that far. It certainly would be more of a suburban or rural as opposed to the Philadelphia. I'm thinking again about Philadelphia now. So
okay, all right. Here's the last question. You ready? Noah.
Yes, sir.
Noah began naming hurricanes in 1953. What was the name of the first hurricane in 1953?
Aileen? I don't.
Well, no. Now listen. Just listen carefully to the question. The first hurricane. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the A storm.
Right.
Okay.
I don't know, Beulah.
No, yeah, unless you've memorized every list, it's hard to imagine how you would get Barbara. And I don't believe that name was used more than once or twice because it's not on the list anymore.
They didn't come up with the rotating list of names every 6 year cycle or whatever till what, the late 70s.
Right, and then
after we started adding male names.
Right, and then also names that reflected the ethnicities of the people in the countries in the Atlantic Basin, so that everybody got to have, there's French names in there, there's Spanish names in there, and so there's a much more of a wide variety of names. Of names, and some of them we can't pronounce.
Right.
Some of them we have huge difficulty pronouncing. But I had said at the beginning of this year that the list was at the point. This year's list looked, because we already knew how to pronounce Henri. So the list this year all had pronounceable names, which is what made this hurricane season stand out a lot better than others. So anyway, time to wrap it up.
Whoever was asking just a few moments ago about next weekend or whatever, again,
it was Michael McGuire.
It's more than 5 days out. Give us a few more days when we're closer, and then we'll have a better handle. Because again, there's insufficient data for a meaningful answer.
Right, as the robot used to say.
By the way, I'm holding in my hand. Can you see this? This is my Alexa. This is my Alexa Echo.
Okay.
And you can see Alexa's lighting up because she hears her name. But if you have an Alexa at home, and you ask her that question that Asimov had in that science fiction novel of his, The Last Question. Let me ask Alexa here. Alexa, can entropy be reversed?
There is as yet insufficient data for a meaningful answer.
There you go. Were you able to hear that?
I heard it. Now, I don't want you to do this. I don't want you to do this on the air, but
no.
Okay.
I know what you're going to tell everybody to do. You're going to ask her to say, how do you say 100 in Welsh?
100 in Welsh. Have you done that?
Yeah.
Have you done it?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so you don't want to do that on the air. And you don't, no, never mind. I can only get myself into huge trouble if I just continue this conversation, this particular theme of this conversation. So let us abandon that and just go to announce that the Joe and Joe show will be back tomorrow. Jason Schaefer says you should ask Alexa to divide by 0. Okay, wait. You know what? Don't take it. Don't take it. I know Jason's a good guy, and he wouldn't give us anything diabolical here. So I'd say but just in case, let's just wait. Okay, on that.
All right.
So anyway, we'll be back tomorrow night at 7:30, and of course, we'll be watching to see the developments with Tropical Storm Nicholas and any other tropical systems that decide to magically appear, including one, Joe. They're watching a system now off between the Azores and Portugal that has a 20% chance. There's X's all over the tropical weather outlook map. So we'll deal with this tomorrow. Everybody have a great day. So we'll see you tomorrow night at 7:30.
I'm off to the Oktoberfest this afternoon, Joe, which the executive producer is in charge. Here in Putnam Valley, 11 Kramer's Pond Road. And I'll tell you what, one-day offer. If any of you right now come down to the Oktoberfest here in Putnam Valley, 11 Kramer's Pond Road, come up to I'm working the candy and soda.
And order 5 cents worth of licorice.
No. If any of you come up and say, I listen or watch Joe and Joe all the time, I will give you your choice of either free candy or a free can of soda. It's the best I can do under the table, so to speak. But if you come on out, say hello, and say, I'm a Joe and Joe fan.
Well, let's see what happens. Maybe you will get someone for free soda and free candy.
A whole load of people coming in like that. Where's my candy? Where's my soda?
Yes. All right. Bye, everybody. And go to. It's a beautiful day. Go out there to the Oktoberfest in the Valley Putnam.